Good day to you. This is your midday news from Vox Africa studios here in London. I am Pamela Bonkium. We kick off today in Gabon. In Gabon's capital, Libreville, the Central African Republic rebel coalition Seleka agreed on a one-week ceasefire deal with the government of the Central African Republic. Seleka's spokesperson said the 1 week will indicate the trustworthiness of the government if they adhere to the ceasefire. There have also been reports that the President Francois Bozizé and the Seleka rebel coalition will sign the government's peace offer today. Sources present at the talks say Bozizé will propose a power sharing in a unity government with the Seleka rebels. Talks continue this morning. Meanwhile, back home on Thursday, hundreds of people marched through the capital Bangui calling for peace. The residents are keeping their fingers crossed in a country which has known mostly coups and counter-coups. They hope both sides will soften their stance for the sake of the country and come to an agreement. Everyone in the capital was anxiously for a lasting solution from Gabon. Let's hear from Martin Ziguele, the leader of opposition party Movement Liberation of the Central African People.
We have no genuine solution to avoid the introduction of rebel forces in Bangui. We are being helped by our brothers from all other countries. And I think you agree with me that it cannot be a definite situation. We have to move, and we have to move toward a solution. And the best way, I think, to have a solution, keeping in touch with interests of our country or all stakeholders, is to go to negotiation.
Now, from Central Africa, we move a bit to the west. On Thursday in Togo's capital, Lomé, opposition protesters staged a demonstration demanding the resignation of President Faure Gnassingbé. The protesters want the president to halt legislative elections, which the government said they wanted to organize in March. They have also called for national dialogue regarding political reform before elections. The protesters had to be dispersed by police tear gas after throwing rocks and firecrackers at the police. Gnassingbé came to power after the 2005 disputed elections. His father had ruled for 4 decades before him. He was re-elected in 2010 elections, which were marred by opposition complaints of fraud and intimidation. The French ambassador to the United Nations yesterday called on all nations to assist Mali. This comes after it was reported on Thursday that rebels drove out the Malian army out of the town of Konna, 600 kilometers northeast of the capital, Bamako. Concern has remained heightened over this turn of events.
These resolutions call on all member states to provide assistance in resolving the Malian crisis in all its aspects, including military and political, and I emphasize, to provide support to the authorities of this country to put an end to the terrorist threat. These events underscore once again the need for the rapid deployment of an African force in Mali and of the training mission of the European Union. It's up to the authorities of my country to define and announce the nature of this assistance, and it will be announced, as you can guess, in Paris. Will answer to a letter which has been transmitted, which has been sent to the President of the Republic. The nature of the answer, I can't tell you. It will be announced in Paris tomorrow.
From Africa, we move into Southeast Asia to Pakistan. The country has been heaving on the weight of recent spate of attacks. And we see that the attacks have left a total of 103 people dead in 3 bomb blasts. The blasts which took place on Thursday and this morning were in Quetta and Mingora in the Swat Valley. In Quetta, a suicide bomber targeted a snooker club, killing 82 people and injuring 121 this morning. Meanwhile, 21 people were killed in a separate attack in Mingora on Thursday. The banned Sunni group Lashkar-e-Jhangvi claimed responsibility for the snooker club attack. In California, in the United States, a 16-year-old student remains in a critical condition after being shot by a fellow student. The student, armed with a shotgun, opened fire at Taft Union High School in the Kern County town of Taft, about 30 miles southwest of Bakersfield and about 100 miles north of downtown Los Angeles on Thursday. After shooting and wounding a fellow student, two adult staff members were able to talk the boy into giving up his weapon. The shooter was then arrested by the police. The shooting comes at a time when government is seriously considering legislation on gun possession across the country. Now here is Donnie Youngblood, the Kern County Deputy Sheriff, on the situation.
There was an active shooter that didn't show up for school this morning. For the first period, he then interrupted the class halfway through it, armed with a shotgun. He fired the first round, striking another student. That student is at the hospital, a 16-year-old who is in critical condition, but stable at this point. He then tried to engage a second student that he named and tried to shoot him and missed. The teacher at that point was trying to get the students out of the classroom and engage the shooter, who had numerous rounds of shotgun shells, a 12-gauge shotgun, numerous rounds in his pockets, and he engaged the student, or the suspect, in conversation.
Can you tell us more about those heroic actions that he made and how?
Meanwhile, U.S. Vice President Joe Biden announced on Thursday that he is working towards presenting his recommendations to President Barack Obama next Tuesday regarding changes to gun laws in the country.
With my colleagues, I'm putting together a series of recommendations for the president that he will take a look at. There's a real, very tight window to do this. I committed to him I'd have these recommendations to him by Tuesday. There is a surprising, so far, a surprising recurrence of suggestions that we have universal background checks. Not just close the gun show loophole, but total universal background checks, including private sales. In all my years involved in these issues, there is nothing that has pricked the consciousness of the American people. There is nothing that has gone to the heart of the matter more than the visual image people have of little 6-year-old kids riddled, not shot with a stray bullet, riddled with bullet holes in their classroom.
Let's move to Latin America. On Thursday, Venezuela's ailing president Hugo Chavez received support from Bolivia and Ecuador. People gathered in their capital cities to pray for the leader and send him their well wishes as he recovers from cancer surgery in Cuba. Chavez supporters in the political alley of Bolivia gathered for a mass in the struggling leader's honor. Attendees to the mass wore Venezuela's colors and carried signs and posters with Chavez's image on them, with messages of hope and solidarity directed to the leader. At one point, the gathering of people began to chant, "Hugo Chavez leaves, Hugo Chavez leaves." The violence in North Ireland for the past 2 months, especially last week, seems to suggest it remains very much a province with undercurrents. In spite of the 2008 peace deal between loyalists and unionists, sentiments remain very strong, as indicated by the flying of the Union Jack flag on Belfast City Hall. The segregation in Belfast is still very noticeable, and the walls separating the neighbourhoods remain erected, with the 8 p.m. curfew still strictly respected in most of the areas. Adrian Golk, Professor of Comparative Politics Studies in the School of Politics, International Studies and Philosophy at Queen's University Belfast, has an in-depth view into the situation.
I mean, this is a very deeply segregated society. It has been for a long time, and really the peace process hasn't brought down the barriers, because the peace process has been based upon a sharing of the spoils rather than creating a shared society. And already they felt a bit alienated from the system, and there are a sort of group of people who feel that they haven't benefited from the peace process. So this was an opportunity for them to make their grievances about lots of things felt, and the flag issue was an emotive one, which they felt that they could, get broader public sympathy with, particularly as the Unionist parties themselves had stressed the issue so much. The worst situation is that in order to justify their stance on the flag issue in relation to Belfast, Unionists spread the flag controversy to other councils, and that other people become mobilised. And of course the other problem is that if at interfaces where there are Protestants and Catholics living close together, you get violence at those interfaces, that would really make a very dangerous situation.
Still in Europe, in France, Paris is bracing itself for a huge anti-gay marriage demonstration over the weekend. March for Everyone, the organization behind the march, taking place on Sunday, say in the closing weeks of 2012, some 350,000 demonstrators had protested against the government's proposals. French media has reported that several 100,000 participants might take to the streets. Organizers say 5 special trains and some 900 coaches have been booked and will converge on Paris. But they insist that many participants have simply made their own arrangements. Some even planned to travel from abroad to attend the demo. The anti-gay marriage campaign has strengthened since President François Hollande took office in May 2012. Now, London's latest landmark, the Shard building, is preparing to open to the public next month. The building's tower will offer unprecedented views over the capital. The view from the Shard offers visitors the chance to gaze over 2,000 years of history from a viewing gallery in what is now Western Europe's tallest building. The Shard is 309.6 meters high, and the viewing platform on level 72 is almost twice as high as any other viewing point in London. The glass structure is next to London Bridge, near the River Thames and Tower Bridge. Well, thank you for watching. That will be all for now. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.